interest. We just talked about that. The wrong interest amount was recorded for the expenditures, so that's been corrected. 40 is transportation fund. We had a little bit more expenditures for a sub-driver before we were able to hire than what was anticipated. The additional bus aid, and then also some additional labor that was unexpected due to the accidents that happened this year. One was the very beginning of school when our bus was run off the road coming back from Bloomington, and the other one was the accident that happened on 150 on a morning route. And then Fund 60 for expenditures, that's where the track and plaza project are coming from. You heard about that if you were in the meeting with Kent. He said that's the place where you want to put those things to make sure that other parts of the AFR come back correct. And we were able to do that. That's where the expenditures are coming from. And what was forecasted by Byrne & Jones to be the FY25 expenditures, we're right on track there. So, haha, on track. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Okay, thanks. Fund 90, we were over our expenditures. We had to raise that by about $20,000. We had more HLS supplies for the high school that were ordered in this fiscal year versus next fiscal year to get some of those projects done. So that's basically where we are with the budget. Kara's going to have the cover sheet for the budget. Sometimes you are, for those who've been on the board for a while, you know that you've had to sign multiple copies of that. This time we're doing things more electronically to the state, so you'll have one copy that you sign, and everybody's signature needs to be on that, please, so we can get that amended budget filed with ISB. So that's the budget hearing presentation. Ta-da! Does anybody have any questions? During the meeting, you'll be asked to approve the amended budget. Great. Thank you.
If there's no questions, I need a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting at 7:04. So moved. Was that Josh? Jonathan Larson?
Yes.
David Harris?
Yes.
Jonathan Yeagle?
Yes.
Jason Nolan?
Yes.
Greg Engler?
Yes.
Josh Hahn? Yes. And Kristen Nolan. Okay. Okay. And now I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:04. We need a roll call on that. Okay. Sorry. Okay, with Jonathan Yeagle,
Yes.
Jason Nolan,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
Sig Engler,
Yes.
Jonathan Larson,
Yes.
Josh Hahn,
Yes.
and Francine Miller. Yes, there are lots of J's here. We do lots of J's.
Lots of J's.
It's your, whatever your district password is, that will get you in. And then we'll send a thing to your phone if you've set that up before. Can you get it? Sorry, we're all struggling with new laptops, and we're missing Christy. Okay. Up next, we have public comment, recognition of guests. Okay, and then we have presentations. Up first is, do we want to do the athletic update first, or do we want to kind of do band uniforms? Let's do band uniforms, because you guys are here in person, so. You're being broadcast. My brother's probably watching at home. Always. So annoying.
It's not on.
So many steps.
This technology.
Wait, you're the band director. You should know all about turning on.
I wasn't taught technology in college. Good evening. Hopefully you know I'm here to talk to you about the possibility of new band uniforms. And I will try and quickly go through my thought process and my discussions with Dr. Stanifer up to this point and the rationale for this request. So I apologize, I did a little bit smaller font than I should have because I thought it was going to be on a bigger screen, but there's our current uniforms at Disney, minus the hats. Why new uniforms? We're talking about things like life expectancy, utility, competitive advantage, and contemporary look, adaptability, sizing, school and community pride. To me, those are kind of the main reasons that we need to discuss the idea of supporting new uniforms. On the right-hand side, industry standards, a uniform they expect to last 15 years. Current non-competitive bands typically replace them in 12 to 13 years. This is information I got from DeMolin and Fruhoff, the main companies that are out there. Current competitive replacement, which we are competitive, a lot of bands nowadays are replacing every 2 to 3 years competitively. Our current uniforms are going to be in their 25th year. I can tell you when we got those uniforms in 2001, Sig, John, the life expectancy of those uniforms was 15 years. I am disappointed to say that, as they can probably confirm, I was much too particular about the uniforms. So I don't have as catastrophic of examples of why we need new uniforms as we should, because I was very prideful of the money we got and took care of these uniforms so that they could last the 25 years. And we'll talk more about that. Current uniform issues with that said. Lots of holes from equipment, staining from equipment, valve oils. A lot of the pants have oil, blacktop from the roads. And of course, you have students that, despite multiple warnings, still want to drink a Gatorade in them or other stuff. And we do have nosebleeds in the middle of competitions and other staining issues that have affected them. Most of our uniforms, I didn't want to go through all 85 of them and give you an exact number, but most have button zipper or snap closure issues. About half of them have worn or stained cuffs on the pants. That's the worst place for most of your uniforms, is because that's where they come in contact with the ground most often. I have several examples of lettering on baldricks that are peeling on a large number of uniforms. We have lost 7 uniforms over the 25 years to catastrophic failures. Butt blowouts, other things along those lines. Many of them, unfortunately, in the middle of performances.
But not the members of
No. Just the uniform blew out. Yeah, glad you clarified. And then currently, our band is much healthier than it was in 2001. Sig. So we have way too many big uniforms. We're overusing the bottom third of men's and women's. In fact, I probably have 3 or 4 of the bigger women's uniforms that have only been worn 1 or 2 years, that still look great, but nobody's wearing them. So along with that, I have some show and tell. These are some of the, not necessarily worst case, but some of the rough case scenarios. You need to see her? No. Okay. Yeah. And if you hold them up really close, they've all been dry cleaned every year, sometimes twice a year. And yet they still have quite a fragrance to them, even after being dry cleaned. Moving forward, 4 new uniforms. These uniforms were designed almost completely by me, the current uniforms, in 2000 and into 2001. When I got the job in 2000, Allison White came to me and said, okay, first things first, we got to get uniforms. We have $5,000 set aside. And this was July. And I said, well, there's 2 issues with that. Number 1, we won't see them for almost a year. Number 2, 5,000 is a drop in the bucket. I hate to break it to you, but that's the case. That's why they came in halfway through 2001, is the process took that long. This uniform, I wanted more student ownership. So Carly Warner and AJ Brown, both members of the band, both seniors, going to be seniors, designed the concept for these uniforms. And I'll go to our timeline. So back in November when I talked to Hillary 3 years ago about this, and I am so out of the loop on how they do uniforms now. It took me a while to get up the courage to try and figure it out. Plus, Hillary guaranteed me 3 years ago that as soon as the windmills went up, you would be able to afford gold-plated uniforms.
Sounds just like what she was saying.
So this November, we got real serious about it at BOA. Myself and my staff members and the kids paid a lot of attention to current trends in band uniforms and what we liked and didn't like. In December, I asked the band, anybody want to design a uniform? I had a couple that said yes. These two ran with it. They also got feedback from a couple of those other. In fact, I think Ollie was involved in some of it. She just wasn't the final designer. So we set a timeline that as soon as they got back from Christmas break, they would give me some design options, which AJ and Carly did. They gave me 7 options. We showed them to the band several times, talked about them several different times. Why do I keep accidentally, I'm putting that down now. And then voted and decided, and it was kind of overwhelming for the design that we went with. So then February, I started talking and reaching out to the 3 main manufacturers. There is only 3 quality specialty uniform companies. You can buy off-the-rack pre-made that anybody else can get the same design from about 5 different companies, but as I said, those are generic and they're not as well constructed. So I started talking to Stanberry, Fruhoff, and DeMolin. I immediately got some response from Stanberry, so I started working with them first and got their initial design. Then once I kind of had that, in April, Dr. Stanifer and I talked again, got the final sketch and pricing from Fruhoff, and then reached out to DeMolin and Stanberry again. Stanberry is what we currently have. I've heard they're going through kind of a restructuring. I don't know if that means they're folding or what, but they didn't seem too responsive to my requests. So I actually only have 2 companies of the 3. At some point, you can only send so many emails before you kind of just go with what you got. So in May, I got to work more diligently with DeMolin. I happened to be in Greenville, Illinois 2 weeks ago for a basketball tournament, and that's where DeMolin is. So I scheduled a meeting with our sales rep and went to their factory, got a tour of the factory, and got to really talk in depth about options through DeMolin. And then, of course, we're here today, and I just put on there that based on their timeline, December, which is kind of what happened in 2001. We were told December, but they did come in early enough that I think we had 2 that year in them, didn't we? I think so. You've slept since then? Okay. So, this is the concept. That is not the final coloring or complete sketches, but it's where we've started from. And then that was sent to Fruhoff and DeMolin. In that, I think you can see there's a nod to many of our former Blue Ridge, again, what am I doing? Many of our previous looks. The sash is reminiscent of the baldric that we currently have. The drape is reminiscent of the cummerbund drape that Francie would have worn. And my lovely assistant director and our curriculum director. And the Aussie was a must for our band kids. Nowadays, they're actually considered to be passé, but our band kids love them because we're the only ones that still do them. And then the biggest thing was the cape. We've had cape since 1986, and they wanted to keep the cape. So those are some of the elements that we made sure we kept. We also looked at some updated school colors based on that darker blue that was added in the rebrand. And we may still have a night head on the uniform. We haven't tweaked the final designs yet. And then the next concept was adaptability, the conditions that we perform in, and that all-important bold new statement, which again I think goes back to our staying competitive and community and school pride. So these are the two designs we have. Demoulin on the left, Fruhoff on the right. Fruhoff, it will not be black. They just automatically make everything black because that's what everybody wants to do. I don't. I want to stick with school colors. I've got a bunch of parents trying to convince me to do black, but that's not one of our school colors. So I stay away from it as much as possible. There may be, as you see in the Demoulin design, black gloves might work well with our new uniform instead of the white. So we may incorporate a little bit, but we're not going to make it a primary color. So why the two different things on the left? I'll explain that in just a minute. Well, no, I guess I'm going to explain it here. Yep, I'm going to explain it here. I promise I only pressed it once. So Fruhoff began with their concept. Their concept is just a vest. That is not a full jacket. The sleeves that you see are actually what's called a compression shirt. That's what a lot of bands are doing nowadays. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I do see some upsides to it. Otherwise, you can see that's pretty much consistent with the concept. I don't believe we'll do the night head again. We currently have that. And I know from my years of going up into the stands to see us perform at U of I and Eastern and Western, it's just a dot on the uniform. Our current uniforms were made with removable cape and baldric so that we could use them in concert as well. We did for a couple of years, and now we're working more towards a black and white concert attire for everything. So the night head worked well for that, but in just a marching uniform, it's not as necessary. The left is Demoulin. They have removable sleeves. So on the main image, that is actual jacket with sleeves that you can take one or both off. The inset is their concept for a compression shirt. Does this have a pointer on it or? No? Okay. I'm going to walk over here and kind of yell. Concept here was to make it kind of look like chainmail. That's what the hatching here is, to connect it more to the knights. New concept with these uniform gauntlets. You see those on marching Illini, a lot of other competitive bands. It helps you look bigger. So what Demoulin did is gave us a uniform. By the way, this would be gray on this side. They messed that sketch up. It would be all full blue arm and then a full gray arm. With gauntlets that match. And then if we wanted to do a chainmail look like this, that's the compression shirt. We would wear it underneath. We would take that sleeve off, and it would look like chainmail. The nice part with the compression shirt, I realized cold weather, performance competition with the chainmail showing, warmer weather, just a compression shirt. I even could see us wearing just a compression shirt with black shorts for Mansfield homecoming, Blue Ridge High School homecoming parades, something like that. This, yeah, the designers put KN on it. We've talked about a VR, we've talked about the night head there. What a lot of bands do is that's a mirror, so that you catch the lighting at certain times, for big effect. And that's kind of what New Mullen shows more, is just a mirror on that. So that's the two concepts. This may come as a shock. I'm glad you're all sitting down, because it did for me, especially when I got the Des Moines bid today. I just got it about 4 hours ago. I've been begging them for 2 weeks. And let me say that since I just got it today, I'm going to do haggling. Trust me, I'm not stuck here. Cost comparisons. I will tell you, I just looked it up. The uniforms we're currently in, bought in 2001, were $482 a piece. So we're not terribly far off for 25 years later for increasing costs. Fruhoff, the jacket with no sleeves, the compression shirt. The tailpiece is that drop down at the bottom of the sash. It's actually a removable, Velcroed in part of the jacket. So it sells separately. Bibbers, gauntlets, cape. Theirs is just a cheap garment bag, and they charge us almost 18 bucks, and they want to charge us for new hangers for all of them. Des Moines, much more expensive jacket, but we get sleeves with it. Compression shirts, a little bit cheaper. Tailpiece, that's one of the things I would say to them, hey, Fruhoff can do it for under 40 bucks, why can't you? Bibbers, I would again say, Fruhoff can do it considerably less than you, why can't you? It's the exact same thing. Gauntlets are already a little cheaper. Cape, not sure why cape would be $110 versus $80. And then Des Moines garment bag is actually a nylon garment bag like we currently have, that won't tear, rip, fall apart when it gets really cold out. And they don't charge us for hangers. They'll actually send hangers with the uniforms.
Imagine that.
I guess that's the $150 difference, is you get hangers. For both these options, we will not purchase Aussies or plumes through Hillary. We bought those 2 or 3 years ago because the hats we were currently using were the ones that Francie and my wife wore. Some kids were putting the hats on and the brims were coming down to their necks, and the rest of it were staying up here. They were so old. That's the reason I've included garment bags as well, is those hats, and the current garment bags were all bought in 1986. That was a concession I made in 2001 to save a little money, was to live with the current garment bags. Well, now we're to the point where I think we have to replace those as well. So that's the information of the two at the bottom. Lastly, I just want to show one more. This one on the surface doesn't look too bad, but you can see a little bit of staining. This would happen to be a drummer's coat several times, because that's right where the bolt that holds the carrier together rubs. The other part I want to point out is, and again, these are bleached because these are washable, but that's the condition of our neck collars. And this happens to be uniform 217. See? I went back and looked. This happens to be SIGs. So we're asking kids to wear SIG sweat.
Sig? Does it still fit, Sig?
And actually, I was amazed by how good a condition it was for SIG having had it first. It's really not bad. So, missing some buttons. As you can see on those ball grips, a lot of these letters are starting to peel off, especially on a couple of them right here where the upper bolt from the carrier sits. So that's my rationale. That's where I hope to go. Right now, as I said, both companies are saying 210 delivery day, which puts us right at the end of December if we were to order tomorrow. But that's what I was told 24 years ago. And we got them halfway through October. So at the very least, I'm hoping that the two designers would be able to wear these on the bowl trip, since they did design them and it's their last year. So that's, oh, one last thing, I did figure it up last night on a spreadsheet. Current uniforms have been through more than 300 performances. I could guarantee 301 by going back through all the competitions and parades we did and everything. I'm sure I've missed something, so we're probably closer to 325 to 350. So value of the current uniforms is under $20 per performance. So I hope you can see that we've certainly given these a great life, and we would continue to do that with new uniforms if you happen to grace us with those. So, questions, I guess? Do I need to, or does somebody have to officially say questions?
I've got a question. What about the hat? Are they included?
That's the Aussies.
Okay,
that I was
that's
talking
what the
about.
Aussies are.
Sorry,
Oh,
that's
cool.
called an Aussie.
I didn't know what the Aussie was. I wasn't sure if it.
Yeah, that's what we replaced 2 or 3 years ago, so we have pretty good Aussies right now.
Great.
Not pretty good. They're in great shape. I guess the one thing, this year is one of our bigger years. We're starting to rebound from COVID. Last year we had a total of 24 kids in band. This year, right now, our enrollment is 39. Those numbers should stay rather consistent, and they do recommend about 15% overage for changing of sizes. I will learn my lesson, and I will make sure those are smaller sizes this year than the bigger end that they gave us 24 years ago, sorry.
So you're talking like 55,
Yeah,
60?
50-ish. The unfortunate part is their pricing is based on 30 to 59. But at 60, it's not enough of a discount to make it worth buying 5 to 10 more. I do want to go back to Des Moines now that I've got these prices, and I'll have a couple more days and negotiate these prices down. Based on the utility of them. Oh, and all these are no longer wool. What we currently have are considered 14-ounce wool. The new ones will be 11-ounce poly blend. They'll be washable, so we'll save about $300 to $400 in dry cleaning every year. And the Des Moines uniforms, both the sleeves and the pants, come with a good 10 to 12 inches of snap buttons every half inch to do hems, instead of my having to take them to Annie in Champaign and pay about $60 to $80 in hemming every year. We can just shorten them, lengthen them, boom, we're done.
Chris, do you want to talk about, what if 5 years, 10 years from now, we need another 20? Are we guaranteed to have
Yes,
that?
they keep this. We could go back to Stanberry and say we need 20 more uniforms, and they still have it available. 5 years from now, pretty quick. 25 years from now, like this year, they would probably have to pull everything back out, re-dye everything, and get everything going again. But they are guaranteed to be add-ins available for the life.
Both manufacturers do that, or
Yes.
are
Yeah,
you
that's
looking
standard.
you have a preferred, sounds like Des Moines is the preferred?
Mine is Des Moines if they'll come down in price. I don't think that 822 is an accurate price for what we're asking for. I think for sure the capes and the tailpiece and possibly the bibbers. The jacket, since it actually has sleeves compared to the other one, is probably pretty accurate. We could make it cheaper by getting rid of the compression shirt and making it permanent sleeves on the uniform. That takes away some of the design options. They can sublimate one sleeve, which is print the chain mail on the one sleeve like Fruhoff is talking, but then that increases the charge there as well. So the removable sleeves and compression shirt underneath is equivalent to permanent sleeves and sublimating one sleeve.
So I guess the next thing would be for the board to kind of figure out, we don't have an action item tonight because we're not quite there yet, but we want to give Chris guidance so he knows, yes, I want to continue to pursue this. You could give him an idea of, let's try to be, I don't know if you wanted to say, let's be under 750, let's be under 725, or let's shoot for this. And then as soon as you're ready to give us maybe 2 final choices, these are the best things that I think we can get for our money, either I or Mr. Payton could send that out to you. Here's our final 2 things. And then I would think that we might want to have some action before we get to July. So we could finalize it at the July meeting, but we might need to have some participation between now and then. So if you want to give any guidance, now would be the time to do that.
That 210 days does include them sending out a sample in about 25 days, I think. So the clock does start as soon as we say, okay, we want a sample, we're signing a contract. It's not like we have to wait on a sample, see it, approve it. That actually gets us, because right now they're in the throes of finishing up every drum corps uniform before their season starts in 2 weeks. So it gets us in line for all the fall designs by signing the contract contingent on the sample.
Any questions?
Do you have different color guard uniforms, or would they use
Yes.
the same ones?
Yeah. Color guard has been done many different ways. Back in Page's day, it was a set uniform every year. It was a prairie skirt with a similar type top, but it was all colors that were opposite from the band so that they could be a color guard, add more color. My first maybe 10 years here, we had a set uniform with the guard that we bought my second year that we used most every year, and we might buy some stuff to add on to it. Here recently, to stay with the trend and be competitive, we have done purchase of used color guard uniforms from other bands in the nation. We did do one that we had designed specifically for us for our Greatest Showman Elton John show. But those have always been paid out of money that we make from parades and concessions and fundraisers the guard girls do. It would be great if you guys would say, yeah, buy some guard uniforms too. But we do find a way to stay current because they're, the one we specifically designed for us was probably $380 a uniform. But like last year's uniform for our show, we bought used, and I think we paid 60 or 80 a uniform used, and then we turn around and try and sell those back to another band that can use them.
I'd like to see the price not go over $725. I feel like that's still a lot, but I don't know what everybody else thinks.
I just want to see no black, so.
Make it 800 and I'll guarantee no black.
Say
825,
flag, or did
825.
you say you wanted them all to wear plaid?
Plaid, yeah,
Plaid.
that's what I
As
heard.
long as it's not
I
black.
like plaid, yeah, it is.
We're becoming the Highlanders. next
Yeah,
year,
there we
right?
go.
Yeah, hate that.
Black gloves, okay?
Yeah, I did like the black gloves
Okay.
and black shoes.
The
Because
black shoes won't happen.
I like that.
Because of this being our biggest year, that would mean rebuying everybody new shoes.
I guess that's true.
So instead of just buying the freshman shoes, we would have to buy 40 pair of shoes.
Washing those white
Last
shoes
year
out.
would have been the year to make the change when we only had to buy 22. So, and I like the uniqueness of the white. I can see that the black is nicer look, but I think it makes us unique with the white. And that's one thing I did give up as well. If you notice on the design, none of them had the tuxedo stripe, I'll call it, We're pretty much the last band that still has tuxedo stripes on our pants. Everybody has gotten away from them because they highlight when you are off step. If you got 20 people with this going this way and one going this way, it's much more obvious than just gray pants. I did give up on the tuxedo stripe this year to make us hopefully raise our marching scores. We don't have fabulous marchers like John and Sig anymore.
Does anyone else have any questions or comment?
Is that with the vertical plume on the one instead of the?
No,
I see.
we currently still have the
Yeah.
caribou that wraps. The plumes we bought a couple of years ago, we did buy some that are more the fan style, so they're not quite as tall. They do that now because everybody wears what's called a Shako hat with that big plume like the marching Illini have. So they're trying to make our Aussie look current. We can do whatever we want with those. Those are bendable and malleable, and one year I don't remember what show, one year we did wear them kind of at a straight up back angle because it kind of fit the theme. I don't know that the Proud Peacock will ever fit any theme we have.
Anyone else? Okay.
All right, so we'll
Okay.
let you come back to us with probably at least 2 things that we could take a look
Okay.
at. Yeah.
Yep.
When you heard that number 725, try to
Yep.
tell hey, our board's really holding
Yeah.
line at
Yeah,
that.
well,
see
and
what
like I
we
said,
get.
I kind of swallowed my tongue at that 822. We were actually in a meeting with some nursing care for my parents, and I got the email, and I was anxious to make sure I had it in time for the meeting, and I opened it, and I went, ugh, and Angela was like, what? I'm like, so I would definitely, even if you said 825, I would be talking them down anyways, because that's BOA bands from Broken Arrow that buy brand new uniforms every year's kind of money. That's not our kind of money.
Yeah.
So,
Ryan and I will wait to hear from you.
okay.
Yep.
I will be getting right on it.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, I've got a wedding next month, so I gotta get it done. You guys want to
I just figured you were gonna let
Oh,
me
yeah,
keep
no,
my
we don't wanna
original
keep it.
uniform. Probably get it, I could probably get it on.
They could wear it.
And just so we,
32.
the all uniforms, we might
I was like, someone
do
gonna buy
something with
those?
them, but we're not going to give them away as whole. I don't want our uniform to ever become a prop or a Halloween costume. I mean, I know we've had some issues with other groups feeling that way recently, and so I don't feel that's appropriate to just give away uniforms and let it become what it is. So I have a couple ideas. I think 4 of these sewn together back to back and side to side would make great dog beds that some might want to buy. And for that extra $25 a uniform, we might go $750 on. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Chris.
Might have to piggyback.
Does it look bad if I leave?
Okay. I had the multi-factor authentication.
No,
It's stopping me because I don't have my other phone here. No.
Okay. Next is athletic update, Blue Ridge High School. Yeah, I know, somewhere.
It's okay.
I forgot to grab an agenda, so I didn't know where I was.
And by the way, Christy will want a hard copy or a digital copy of what you say tonight at some point. You're good.
Yeah, so just kind of a wrap up for the year end of athletics at Blue Ridge. Fall sports, we had football, 8-man football, and we finished 2-7. Had 23 kids out. Some attrition during the course of the season. I think we only had 3 seniors, and when I talked to Dave and Matt recently, they said that are incoming freshmen. We'll replace the 3 seniors for sure, and then we hope that to keep building numbers in the future. It sounds like the numbers, Bert's not here to verify, but it sounds like the numbers of the junior high are a little bit larger in some upcoming classes, so that could be nice. Soccer finished 2-10-2 overall. Numbers were up a little bit more with soccer this year. They had about 18 to 19 kids out. Best player for the season was our foreign exchange student, who obviously had a lot of soccer experience. We do have another foreign exchange student coming next year, so we'll see if they and from another good soccer country. I want to say, oh shoot, I don't want to get it wrong. I want to say the Netherlands, maybe. Anyway, yeah, good to see that. And then talking with Coach Flanell a couple weeks ago, we're looking at having pretty nice numbers again. Next year did not graduate a whole lot of seniors, I think maybe 2. And so we should be able to be up over 20 kids this fall. Volleyball also struggled last fall, 2-27 overall. Had a brand new coach, her first go around, and she had some definitely had some growing pains, and a step down. I'm encouraged by the energy and enthusiasm so far this summer from the kids, and D-Land, the D-Land Weldon coaches reached out not too long ago and asked if we wanted to get together for a scrimmage this summer. So they're going to load up an activity bus and go to D-Land tomorrow night and play a volleyball scrimmage in the summer. And we haven't done that for quite some time. So good. Hopefully that enthusiasm will continue. Golf on the boys' side had a rather inexperienced team. One of our better players was a freshman, Preston Giles. Did pretty well as the season wore on. Trying to see. I thought possibly he was a sectional qualifier, but I don't see that here in the notes. The boys' team was. It says there. I don't. Sorry, I'm looking at notes here. It looks like they were 5th out of 6 at the LPC meet, 5th place out of 6 teams. Girls golf had 7 girls out. Top golfer was Lily Inger. She was 6th overall at the conference meet. She also qualified for sectionals, which she did 3 of her 4 years. I think we mentioned that here, that when that season wrapped up, she is going on to play golf at Milliken this fall, so I know she's playing a lot this summer to get ready for that. As we rolled into winter, we had Scholastic Bowl. They had a very nice season, 47-29 overall. They were regional champions and 2nd out of 10 teams at the Masonic. And a top player was Indra Nolan, who was 2nd team All-State. So that was pretty awesome for Indra. She's actually back next year, isn't she? Great stuff. Boys basketball season, they went 11-18 overall. Hunter is finished up his 3rd year with this team, and he's kind of, in talking with him, his goal is just to kind of give the kids some consistency year in and year out, because he had come in and they'd had 3 or 4 different coaches in the past 3 or 4 years, and so he was, really wanting to create some stability. We graduated a ton of seniors, and so it'll be we're going to be young. We're going to be young this winter, but he's excited to see what we can accomplish. Highlights of that were definitely when Isaac Price got his 1,000th point for his career. Back in early January was a big deal. Girls basketball went 1-27. Coach Clevenger finished up his 2nd year with us, and Zach and Josie are going to be taking over, as you know. And they already had a little kids camp here last week, as summer kicked off, and there were all these little kids in the gym every day last week. So it was good to see lots of good energy there. Let's see, the girls track team, as we move on to spring, girls track team was, 6th place at the Lincoln Prairie Conference meet. Had several kids finish in the top 5 there. Sadie Manuel was second in the pole vault, and Ariana Miller-Brown was third in the 400. At the sectional meet, Sadie also finished second in the pole vault and qualified for state, and Ariana finished fourth, but met qualifying marks in both the 400 and the 200 to also qualify for state at girls track. So they had a good finish to the year. Boys track finished 11th out of 12 teams at the LPC meet, and they did not have any state qualifiers this year, but they had their team is made up of a lot of young kids. Freshmen and sophomores comprise a bulk of that team, so looking forward to good things as that moves forward. Boys baseball failed to win a game this year. We started with 11 kids out. I was at one of the games early in the year when it was about, I think with the wind chill, it was probably about 38 degrees, and it was pretty miserable, and one kid decided he wasn't having any fun, and so then we were down to 10. And then a kid broke his hand, and then somebody else was ineligible, and it was a struggle. Some of the games we had to start with 9, because you have to start with 9, so we started games with 9, and then the kid with the cast then would leave, and we'd play with 8 the rest of the time. So, good group of freshmen coming in next year, so we should hopefully not be in that situation again. Softball also had 11 out. They didn't have anybody breaking arms, so that was good. Finished with an 11-10 record overall. Rusty was in his first year with that program. And Ellie Sleeper had a great career with us at Blue Ridge as she finished with over 500 strikeouts, which is third all-time in school history as a pitcher. So really, really good stuff. Let's see. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't also acknowledge and thank Mr. Miles for 10 years of service in the role of athletic director. As you know, he stepped down at the end of the school year. The AD job is, speaking from experience, it can be endless, lots and lots of hours, and is often thankless. And I know that there were lots of tumultuous times here in the past 10 years that Mr. Miles helped guide Blue Ridge through, especially during the COVID years. Trying to navigate that was definitely not an easy thing. So he did a really nice job and helped keeping programs going, even as our overall school enrollment has declined. So definitely appreciate all of his years of service there. So that's a quick summary of sports. Any questions? Okay. I don't know what's next on the agenda. Am I supposed to stay up?
Next is communication. And the IASB liaison talking points is in the board packet. And then we have committee reports.
So the Finance Committee met this evening, and we were able to have Kent Kuhl, our auditor, here, and we have our FY24 AFR in hand, just in time to amend the 25 budget and time to start working on the 26 budget. So that was presented, and we will approve that when we are later on in the agenda tonight.
Okay. And then we have administrative reports. Hillary?
Okay, superintendent report, a little bit light on the report this month. You can see that in front of you. What I do want to highlight is the next item, which is the strategic plan update. So your 2022 to 2025 strategic plan is getting finalized tonight. So you've been hearing about that every 3 months. We've given you an update. And just the first area, communication and community pride. I'd like to say that I feel like we've made progress in that area. It's never done. The work is never done in that area, but I have heard many say that we believe that we're going in the right direction, so hopefully you do as a board as well. Number 2, fiscal responsibility and communicating our financial situation. One of the charges that you had for me was to make sure that I continue to work with the coach. Mr. Payton's already connected with that coach. They've had several meetings, and they have one scheduled for July 2, I believe. Yep, not wasting any time there. And as you heard tonight, we're doing very well, faring very well with our financial stability. And hopefully you felt like the budget and the levy and all those financial pieces of information quarterly financial reports have been presented in a way that are user-friendly. That's always the goal. Number 3, use of data and updating our curriculum. I'm glad Paige is here tonight just to say that I feel like the principals have done a nice job with really using data to make decisions of what we're going to do for kids next, what's the next best step. But Paige really leads the charge with updating the curriculum, and that just doesn't happen by itself. And you don't want to do that to teachers, you want to do that with teachers. And because of Paige, we're able to make it with teachers. Facilities plan number 4, obviously you can see the track and field, major progress going on there. It's striped right now if you haven't seen that. We are still with some septic decisions at a standstill. So to be quite honest, we're a little bit nervous about September 12th homecoming on that field because there's quite a bit of work that's left. The irrigation, the septic tank has to not only be decided by the health board, but installed, and then comes the irrigation, and then comes the sod. So the bleachers are separate from that, but they're not scheduled to come in until the beginning of July. But major progress in the last 3 years in that area. And then the last area, extracurricular programs. Continuity is something that we've always wanted. And as you heard tonight, we've had some changes in coaching, but I'm very pleased to say that with softball, we're now seeing some continuity between Rich and Rusty being in both locations with the younger students and the older students. Now also we're going to see that in girls basketball as well with Zach and Josie, and you're going to hopefully approve an assistant coach down at the Mansfield building, but then you'll have some continuity here at the high school in that girls basketball program. So I think that does wonders. So that's the last of that strategic plan. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
No questions? Okay, then we have the principals, Mr. Payton.
All right, good evening. I just have a few updates that I will share. Number one, we had a wonderful end of the year awards assembly and field day. We were very thankful to PIE who for the last several years has also contributed quite a bit of money to support our bounce houses on those days. The kids absolutely love them. Unfortunately, we had some tough weather on that day with some rain, and we were able to get those inside at the high school gym. And Mr. Hanson was also very helpful in making some last-minute adjustments to some of the activities so that we could fit everything inside the old gym and still have a wonderful day for all of our kids. So in the morning of that day, we also do an awards assembly. So that's just a fun opportunity where we get to just highlight a variety of things from top performers in PE to citizenship award winners that we have in our building. And we even did our nice challenge celebration as well. So this year, our top earning students were selected, and we did a little game of duck, duck, pie. And so basically each of the 12 students got a pie, and teachers lined up along to 12 to 13. I was at the end. I only got pied twice, thankfully, but it was fun. The kids really enjoyed the moment, and it was just kind of a good way to set off that day. Additionally, we did have some other kind of fun events that took place at the end of the year. So we always do our MTSS team. That is kind of our PBIS team, it used to be called. And what we really do is look at kind of ways across the building to incentivize positive behavior and different things that we do. And so this year we had come up with a plan to use popsicles with the principals incentive. So that was kind of a fun way, once again, to reinforce those positive behaviors, because we know the last couple of weeks sometimes can be pretty difficult with staying on task. And so our first grade won the first week and third grade won on the second week. So it was a good way to send off and transition those third graders into the Mansfield building next year. So our PBS team, our MTSS team, is always looking for ways to incentivize things that happen around the building. Sometimes those extrinsic rewards can be great ways to kind of instill some of those intrinsic things long term, but they do a really nice job with looking at data and coming up with ideas to improve behavior around the building. Last but not least, let's see. We'll recognize a couple of things with pre-K real quick. So 2 things there. In May, we had our final Growing Together event. We have about 5 parent and family Growing Together events each year. Those events are ways to bring in families and connect families, and also to engage in kind of just different experiences that they may not have at home, kind of being away from a device or away from a screen and being able to interact and socialize with other families. And with just in this case, we had the Children's Discovery Museum who came and did kind of external event. Actually, Jonathan got to be there, so that was fun. But it's really awesome. They come and set up anywhere from like 5 to 6 different activities, usually STEM-related activities, and parents and students and staff all get to interact together and engage in learning and have some dialogue and just connect. So really awesome job. Ms. Brock put that together, so I appreciate her planning and preparing for that. Any other questions? Okay.
high school kids don't get to do all the fun stuff like the little kids. Although when the bounce houses got set up in the gym, I did have several kids take notice, and it was very difficult to keep everybody off of those, I have to say. May or may not have been successful with that. So yeah, as we wrapped up the school year, obviously at the high school, the big deal is graduation, and I thought went really smoothly this year for those of you that were there. And then shortly after that, we had finals for all of our other students, and again, it felt like it was a real successful wrap up to the end of the school year. Yeah, it seemed to be no major issues at all, and I'm really excited to see as we started kind of diving into some data of scores, and then especially we got the ACT results back from our freshmen and sophomores, the pre-ACT results, and so we'll kind of be tearing those apart this summer and then sharing those with staff in the fall and say what do we do with this, and what kind of guidance can we use, and then with Mr. Payton, I've been having discussions about how that ties into our strategic planning for the high school and growth goals for what we want to see from our kids moving forward. But yeah, other than that, as we head into summer, it's just a lot of camps and things kicking off, and summer leagues, and just looking forward to the fall. So, questions? I do also want to, actually I should comment, there was an inquiry about our vape detectors, and so is it okay if I address that? Yeah. So you may or may not have seen, there was an article recently of a local school that installed vape detectors last year and had remarkable results, and they felt really good about it. And but the cost was a lot less than what ours had been. What we were looking for. So I reached out to the principal there and just kind of, inquired a little bit and found out the model and the brand and kind of the number of devices that they'd used and the processes. And yeah, I think that they definitely did some good things. And then very shortly after that, I had a conversation with Dave Kramer. He had also investigated that particular company and that style, and just he didn't feel comfortable, and that company didn't give him great assurance that they would be long-lasting sensors. There was, and there's no point in putting stuff in if it's going to need to be replaced in 2 years because it's dysfunctional, and so I think that was a great concern there. And then kind of the range of detection for what that particular model does. It wasn't going to meet our needs. So I do think that after talking with him about that, I fully understand why we didn't necessarily go with that particular brand. But just like with band uniforms, there's cheaper versions out there, and there's better versions, and then there's top of the line Cadillac versions. And I don't think what Dave and Mr. Kirkton were looking at, I don't think that's Cadillac by any means, but it's definitely a good solid investment if that's the way that we want to go. Any questions about that? I know I opened up something new, so David, anything more you want to? No? Okay.
Sorry, but this is going to be installed before the school year starts.
Yeah, I know. There was so much going on at the end, right? I think where we're at is we haven't yet acted on that here as a board. So if that's something we're going to do, we would need to do that at the July board meeting and then move ahead in that direction. The Triton model that Monticello used was 7,000 ish, and I think the version that we're looking at is about 18. They only purchased 7. I think he said 7 sensors is what they got. We're going to do 16 just to make sure that we've got more area covered. And the range of detection of their sensor and the reliability is not quite what the company that Dave is looking at. But the number of sensors, obviously the more sensors you get, that's going to increase price. And yeah, there's our version is going to be wireless, so they can also be moved around with greater ease versus the Tritons, which were hardwired into the spot, and then they're just stationary there. And what the principal told me is he's not exactly sure if there's. They definitely acted as a deterrent, especially initially, and they did a lot of communication out. Hey, we're putting these things in there, and he thinks, he thinks there were some kids that definitely were positively impacted, and he could see physical changes in some kids that they seemed healthier, but he was pretty certain that a lot of the kids had just found ways around the sensors, but one success story, I guess, is if you're helping one kid, that's good. So. Okay. Okay.
Okay, Paige.
Okay. I've lost my bifocals. I know everyone's shocked that I lost my glasses. I'm always late. Maybe. We'll see how this goes. I won't go like this 100 times. Okay, so community who have been driving by the school might be a little confused if they're at either school thinking, I thought school was out for summer because there's still teachers' cars here. There's been a lot of work that's been happening since school got out in May. So we started out having 3 days of math PD. That was for our kindergarten through 12th grade teachers. We had a total of 13 participants. We had a different topic each day. The first day was building thinking classrooms. The second day was helping kids overcome math trauma. And the third day, we had some of our special ed teachers come in, and it was specifically focused on math interventions. And I had heard a lot of positive feedback about those 3 days. From then, we moved on to ELA. I am excited to say that our new ELA materials have arrived. They've been sorted. The teacher manuals are in their hands. And we had 2 days of launch training, so June 3rd and June 16th. And we had just under 40 staff members who participated during those 2 days. It was 6-7 hour training. All the teachers were really engaged. They're excited about the new curriculum. After they got done with those launch days, they've been working as grade level teams and working on mapping out the first and second quarter of what their curriculum is going to look like. And it's just fun to see the energy. They're excited. They're excited to see how this is going to benefit our students. And so I think that it's safe to say everyone's really excited for the next new school year with the ELA curriculum. On June 5th, we had a special training for just third grade teachers. Their curriculum shifts from K2. It's kind of a transition point to what the makeup or what the structure looks like moving forward. And so there's a special skills training for third grade. All of our third grade teachers were able to participate in that. And then the next day, there was a training for our interventionists for 4th through 6th grade, where we were able to explore some of our hands to mind materials, talk about how we can use them. We really want to try to have a more consistent structure to each interventionist is kind of using the same structure, just to have that consistency for our students. So again, that was another great day. Moving forward, I've referenced looking for 3 curriculums for our high school class. We were looking for a child development curriculum, parenting curriculum, and then an interpersonal relationships curriculum. We have not found curriculums that we feel like would be good fits for parenting and interpersonal relationships. And the ones that we have found either seem to target more like college level, or their copyrights are really old. So we don't want to put a lot of money in if something else is going to be coming out. However, we did find an excellent child development curriculum, and so that was in your packet, and I also included the quote. So that's something that is an action item later. I will say, I believe the resources they're currently using are from the 90s, so they have seen their better days, which is kind of like the art curriculum. I think 3 or 4 months I told you that the art curriculum that we're using for K through 8 was created through a grant that me and maybe 5 or 6 other teachers wrote. It was at least 26 years ago, I think. And so it's seen its days and a little bit more than its days. And I worked closely with Molly Schneeman, and we found a really excellent curriculum. It's called the Art of Education Flex Curriculum Suite. It's a K through 8 program. It's a license that you purchase each year, and really one of the selling points, it had lots of great components, but one thing that was really impressive was the amount of professional development that Molly can go in and get on the spot. It's easier to find professional development for ELA or math or science or social studies, but a lot of times it's hard for our art teachers, our music teachers, and so we were really excited to see that that is embedded and she would have access to that. And then also I included that quote, and like I said, that would be a license we would purchase each year, which is similar. And the cost is pretty close to what we're using for K through 8 music curriculum. It's just a yearly cost. And then I'm waiting to save my not so great news till the end. So, as we referenced earlier, it is grant writing time. And our Title I grant was just opened last week, I believe it was, and I looked at the numbers, and it looks like we're going to have very similar funding as we had last year. That grant usually runs between $115,000 to $130,000, and so it came in right at $127,000 for Title I, which is great news. And so then I went in and looked at. So let me back up. So Title I, just so you know, that funds 2 teachers. That's our Title I teacher at Snyder and our Title I teacher in Mansfield. It funds our homeless set-aside, where we support students who are experiencing homelessness. We can help them with school supplies and clothing, doctor's appointments. There's all kinds of things that we can do to help support those families. It also pays for supplies and materials for those Title I teachers, and then family engagement. So as you can see, that funding source is really important for us. So then I went in to open Title II, and I anxiously scrolled down. It's usually about $10,000, and it said 0. And I was like, oh, that's odd, but I'm sure it's a mistake. So I'll worry about that later. I'll move on to Title IV. But Title II pays for anytime we have coaches from the ROE, so our math coaches, our ELA coaches, anytime that we pay teachers to do training before or after their contract hours in the summer, that's where that money came from. So that money is really integral as well. So then I went to Title IV. Title IV pays for technology training, SEL training. We can use it for music professional development, and it's always around $10,000, and it said $10,000 there. So I'm like, okay, great. And then we got an email that said, I'm going to read it for you. Title II, Part A allocation amount is 0 within this grant because the U.S. Department has not released these funding amounts. And this is the part that concerned me. If funding is received at a later date, your allotment will be added. We've never had a sentence like that or an email like that, so I'm like, oh, that's a little bit concerning. And then we also have one more funding source, which is called REAP. REAP has been used to have our teachers attend conferences. It's how we've paid for teachers to attend to learn how to teach dual credit classes. We've paid for other teachers to take college courses so that we can offer English 101 and English 102. And again, we've also used it for teachers to train and attend professional development outside their contract hours. So Mr. Payton graciously shared with me yesterday his update that he got that said, based on the current federal budget information, Title I, Title IV will stay the same. Title II, they list about 6 other grants, but the only 2 that affect us, Title II and REAP, will no longer exist, but will be bundled together into one federal grant. So I thought, oh, great news. It's just going to be a different name. However, the total dollars will be reduced from $6.5 billion to $2 billion. So basically, we don't know how much we're going to have for Title II and REAP. And so Mr. Payton and I have been talking about, how we're going to kind of hopefully figure out a plan to have a safety net, because, the things that those grants pay for are very valuable, but we really won't know what it's lacking, if it's lacking, until we get that final number. And they really haven't shared when they think that projected number will come out. You have not heard, no. So that's kind of my news, but everything else was really fun. So do you have any questions?
Paige, thank you.
Yes.
The child development curriculum, is that aimed at the teachers or in a classroom?
That'll be for the students in the classroom. So that quote includes, I believe it's 15 student texts and then a 6-year license for the teacher to have resources to pull.
And that would be upstairs?
Amy Thacker,
Yeah,
yes.
What I used to call home ec.
Yes, yep, you've got it.
Okay, and I would like to comment on Title II and REAP, but I won't.
Okay, I understand. Any other questions? Maybe I'll have good news next month. That's what I'm gonna hope for.
Come back with something else. Thank you. Okay, and then the remaining reports are in the board packet.
Come back up again?
Yeah, sure. Real quick, I forgot to share one thing. We discussed a little bit about this, but just so you know, we, at the end of May, we had a student that's potentially moving to our district and maybe attending in the fall. And as a result of that, we may need to look at hiring an additional professional to student require semester support. So I just kind of wanted to put that on your radar, that may be coming next month as maybe some type of one-on-one or an at-will, I guess, aid. We would consider that in some way, shape, or form, because the student will need support in order to be successful in the classroom. I just kind of wanted to reflect on the radar.
What building?
It'll be a sniper.
Up next is consent. I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items listed on attachment A as presented.
Second.
Was that Sig first? Okay. Sig and Yeagle is what we're doing. Yes.
Known by the last name.
Jason?
Yes.
Sig?
Yes.
David Harris?
Yes.
Jonathan Larson?
Yes.
Josh Hahn? Jonathan Yeagle?
Yes.
Francie Miller?
Yes. Okay. Old business consideration of unit office HVAC work.
Okay, so we have brought this to you a couple months ago, and we brought you a design from GHR Engineering that was quite pricey to try to fix the HVAC issue in the unit office now that it's been divided up into several places. It originally was supposed to have heating and cooling that was separate for those spaces, but due to some budget crunching at the time, they decided not to install that, so that's where the problem came from. You asked Rusty to go back to the drawing board and see if there was another way to skin this cat, and we started looking at the, what do you call it, those separate units, the mini splits. He talked to Ryan Bohawk from United Mechanical, because we have a lot of time where Ryan Bohawk is with us from United Mechanical to fix things for us. And Ryan Bohawk had suggested looking at value engineering, which would mean that United Mechanical would draw up some plans, not for public consumption, but just to come to us, approved by their engineer, and you can decide if you want to say yay or nay to that when they bring it to us. But it should be, if you give us the permission to go forward with that, you should at least want to consider what they give to us as their estimate for their design and for their cost. Ryan Bohawk does believe he can come in under the 35,000 bidding threshold to do that project, and it would be tying into the same system that we already have, the cold water system. So basically, all you'd be given permission tonight is a serious consideration of the value engineering drawings that come from United Mechanical. Like, you could say no, and we could do nothing, or we could go back to GHR and see if there's anything that they could do for a smaller amount. I know Jonathan and I had talked about, there's a possibility we could say, give us less of a drawing, and basically see if we could go out for bids on that. Rusty seems to be very much in favor of letting Ryan Bohawk take a look at it from United Mechanical. So just kind of wanted to get your thoughts so I can tell Rusty how to proceed. About 8,000 from memory just for the design, which would then, we would allow us to share that with everybody and go out for bids. If we're going out for bids, we have to have something for them so they're all bidding on the same project. So, but again, if you went with the value engineering, you don't have to say yes to that, but I want you to at least know that you would seriously consider it. Otherwise, we shouldn't ask for them to do that because they wouldn't be charging us, but they would be doing all that work. So.
Yeah, I'm in favor of getting another price, and maybe more of a firm price on the whole project. The 8,000 from GHR, I didn't think that's, it's the design, and they were also providing services like pre-bid meetings and
Yes.
site visits and stuff. So it's,
Yes.
and then they're in Champaign, so they're billing for. They wouldn't bill, but they're spending money to come to do those kind of site visits. So it's not just the design; it's their services too. I think we might. I don't know if we lose some of that by going with the value engineering straight from the contractor. I would want to see an engineered, stamped something. I don't know if that's what United Mechanical would do, if they have an engineer actually stamp drawings, since it has to do with airflow and that needs to meet mechanical code and energy code. Those would be my concerns with the value engineering thing. But it is nice to know how much it's going to cost. So that's what I was thinking with GHR, if we could go back to them, if we were not happy with the United Mechanical price, ask them to do more of a conceptual design. So not the full $8,000 package, but see if they could do a limited study, write up a report of what we could do, give us a rough ballpark cost estimate, and then the option to go forward the full design or to go forward with working with a contractor. And I've seen that done with other smaller projects as an engineering study instead of the full design, just to nail down what this. I don't really know what the scope of work is there. I've been in the office. So it's not a big project, but yeah, those were my kind of thoughts.
That was kind of my concern was, are we paying to have an architect or engineer go out for bid on a project that could be done for, that doesn't need, we don't need to go out for 5 different bids. I mean, is it simple enough that it could be done under the bidding threshold? Or, because I think what they typically say, isn't it about 10% is the fee for the district architect, so it's an $80,000 project to him. And I was like, whoa. And then United Mechanical says they can do it for less than what we're required to go out for bids, which is 35, right? So that's where I was at on it. But great points on the, we got to make sure we're code compliant. So.
And they would have an engineer that would look over what United Mechanical, what Ryan Bohawk would draw up. That would be put through an engineer in-house. I'm not sure about, I can't speak to the whole stamped thing. I think the way Rusty was explaining, I think Ryan, you were in there with me. Stamped, in my mind, the stamped part means that it could go out to anybody. This would not be shared with anybody else. So, but I know that their engineer would review it and make sure that we were good to go, but it's not for public consumption, not for bidding consumption.
And I guess when I think of the stamping, it's not necessarily, doesn't have to go out to bid, just being stamped, but that being stamped means it's been done by a licensed engineer that is being held accountable to the codes, to design into code, keeping health and the public welfare in mind.
Yeah,
It's not that we have to go out for bids, that just having a stamped drawing, but that's an assurance that it's, the design is solid. But I agree, a $35,000 project, I don't think we want to spend $8,000 just for the design. That's pretty hefty. But we also don't want to spend $35,000 and then spend another $35,000 in 5 years when it doesn't work anymore, or it doesn't work well.
When the HLS guys come do their inspection and say that, this is for you, this is compliant.
Yeah.
So we just, I guess we need to make sure that we're, got an engineer stamp on it before we proceed with anything, making sure it's compliant.
I'm looking back at my notes from my meeting with Rusty that I take because sometimes I didn't go to school to be an engineer, right? He said the owner's a mechanical engineer, so he would be the one that would be looking over the plans, but he did say wouldn't be stamped drawings.
Would not be.
Would not be, is what I wrote down.
Is that something that we can just seek further clarification on?
We can.
Seems like a smaller ask to find out how they're going to certify it.
Jonathan, can you repeat some of what you said? Talk to me about the stamped drawings again so I can make sure that we're asking the right thing.
Since it has to do with moving air, keeping people healthy and comfortable, that would need to be compliant with mechanical code, which an engineer would be held accountable to by putting their stamp on it.
Okay. So we're looking for compliance with mechanical code.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we're not just, I'm not interpreting Rusty's language one way, but it's,
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we're doing the code that we need to do, but I don't want to rely on what I typed from our meeting to say that, no, they're not going to do that. I would find it very unusual if they wouldn't be following the code, but.
So, I mean, the stamping is basically the professional liability, is what we want to make sure that they're standing behind it, and it's,
Yeah.
yeah, we're not going to have an HLS issue. So, I mean, that's, basically if there's a stamp or not, I mean, but we want to make sure that the liability part is there.
Okay.
So, but I mean, which was what that indicates typically with architects and engineers and everything. So, yeah, we're not worried about the bidding, but we're worried about the liability side, make sure they're doing it right.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd be interested in having them go ahead with that.
So, looking at the motion, I think the motion could still be appropriate. We're looking to approve the pursuit of a value engineering estimate from United Mechanical, knowing that we're going to be talking about the professional liability compliant with mechanical code and so on. Okay.
So we want to go ahead with the motion. Any other thoughts?
Thanks, Jonathan, too. One,
Larson? Okay, I need a motion and a second to approve the pursuit of a value engineering estimate from United Mechanical for unit office HVAC improvement as presented and discussed.
So moved.
Larson? Sid?
Zig Eager. Yes. David Harris.
yes.
Jonathan Larson.
Yes.
Josh Hahn. Jonathan Yeagle.
Yes.
Jason Nolan.
Yes.
Francie Miller.
Yes. Up next is approval of milk bid.
Okay. We went out to 5 different companies, as we usually do, and on the deadline for bids to come in, we had nothing. We were a little bit concerned. And then I had Prairie Farms walk in a couple days late with an envelope that was sealed and had the date of when it was due on the corner of it. And the guy said, "I am so sorry. I had this in my truck. I misread in my calendar, whatever, when this was due. Now what do? We want to have your business." I said, "Well, we want to have yours as well." Nobody else has turned in bids, and so I took the privilege of saying, yes, we would accept his bid because there was no competition. So we want our kids to have milk next year, please and thank you. So your approval will say that we will go with Prairie Farms in Urbana.
Well, and I went over the pricing too, and sour cream's slightly high, but everything else is really good. So,
Thankfully, they don't drink sour cream, so.
well, there's sour cream's on the bid, that's why. But the cottage cheese was good, milk was really good, and juices were, but
Thank you.
Within range. Any other comments? If not, I need a motion and a second to approve Prairie Farms Only Illinois as the vendor for milk products for the 2025-2026 school year for Blue Ridge CUSD 18 as presented. Yeagle? Josh?
David Harris,
Yes.
Jonathan Larson,
Yes.
Josh Hahn,
Yes.
Jonathan Yeagle,
Yes.
Jason Nolan,
Yes.
Sig, Francie Miller.
Yes. Up next. She's like, no. Press 118, second reading.
Oh, boy. Press 118 was a little bit large, and this has been presented to the policy committee to look at. I did give you an updated version of 118 that had some updated notes on there. Some of the questions I wanted to cover, we have a lot of policies now that are related to having a person in every building, school building, who can be the resource contact person for any expectant youth, any parents who are students, or any victims of domestic or sexual abuse. So Ryan and I had a good meeting with our counselors. They agreed to be that person. We gave them a name because we didn't think Article 26A was a very descriptive name of what this role would be. So we've taken care of that issue. We also looked at our AI concerns that we had, and we feel like we're moving in the right direction. We also looked at the cell phone policy to make sure that our approval wouldn't be tying our hands with anything. Our kids at the high school, we're not looking into buying locked pouches for cell phones. You might have seen something in the news recently about Decatur. I think they were, how much? Danville, maybe 42,000 to cover for locked pouches. I would rather spend our money in a different way than locked pouches. We're going to have pouches, what I call a calculator caddy, but a lot of people call them a shower caddy, hanging in high school rooms this year where cell phones will be deposited at the beginning of class and then they'll be picked up again at the end of class. So that means our kids will have them in their hands during passing periods and lunchtime as they did last year. Since we will not specifically be giving consequences to a student because of the time of day, like because it's passing period, you'll not get a consequence because you're using your phone over passing period. If you're using it appropriately. If you're using it inappropriately at lunch or during passing period, that's when you would get a consequence. But that language in the policy is not going to make any kind of contradictory information. So for that reason, I feel like 118 is ready to be approved.
Any questions? If not, I need a motion and a second to approve Press 118 for Blue Ridge CUSD number 18 as presented.
So moved.
David?
Second.
Larson?
Jonathan Larson,
Yes.
Josh Hahn,
Yes.
Jonathan Yeagle,
Yes.
Jason Nolan,
Yes.
Sig Fingers,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
Francie Miller.
Yes. Up next is approval of the FY25 amended budget.
Okay, so it was here tonight. We should all be very happy. So it's really tough to get something so late. For those who are able to attend the AFR portion of the event tonight, Kent started by saying that he had 2 districts, it was us in Ridgeview, who moved to cumulative, migrated during the FY24 timeframe, and it's been a nightmare. Things that were promised, things coming over accurately, it didn't happen. And it took a whole lot of manpower, no, a whole lot of woman power, to get some of those things rectified, and a lot of time. So we were late with some of our reconciling, which caused other problems, because when you don't know what's in each account, you don't know when you need to make revisions. As I've said to Ryan many times, I'm very thankful that we were not in a financial spot where we had to worry about making payroll, but we had to be concerned about, we don't know where we are right now. So it was kind of a scary time frame, and I'll say it still is, to be honest. We're not quite up to date yet, but we are getting there, and we're making great progress at this time. So your approval tonight is basically saying, yay, thank goodness we got past FY24, and we have a 3.9 recognition status on a 4-point scale, which Kara and I are very thankful for.
If there's no questions, I need a motion and a second to approve the amended FY25 budget for Blue Ridge CUSD number 18 as presented. Jason and Sig.
Josh Hahn,
Yes.
Jonathan Yeagle,
Yes.
Jason Dolan,
Yes.
Sig,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
Jonathan Larson,
Yes.
Francie Miller,
Yes. Up next, new business. First is approval to move the accumulation of FY25 interest in Illinois funds investment account in Heartland Bank and trustee accumulated in investment.
Okay, so this is something that Kara has really helped us with by doing a lot of investment. Illinois Funds has been our friend. As you can see on page 493, the district made over $227,000 in interest. That's categorized by funds. What we'd like to do, other than Fund 70, which is our working cash fund, we want to be able to drop those back into the principal. And then I just wanted to add the note that once we get past the end of June and we get into July, Kara is going to be prepared to give us another update on how much should we be putting into Illinois funds going forward. We're not quite ready to make that proposal to you, but we're really close.
Any questions on this? If not, I need a motion and a second to approve the accumulation of interest in Illinois funds investment account and Heartland Bank and Trust investment account to be added to and become part of the principal of the fund in which the interest was earned as of June 30th, 2025, with the exception of Fund 70 interest. Sig? Jason?
Jonathan Yeagle,
Yes.
Jason Dolan,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
Sig, Jonathan Larson,
Yes.
Josh Hahn,
Yes.
Francie Miller,
Yes. Up next is approval to transfer the FY25 interest accumulated in investment accounts for working cash fund 70.
So this is where you separately look at the working cash fund. So we know what the amount of interest for Fund 70 is within the Illinois investment funds, and so that amount is just over $40,000. We've decided that we would like to move that into Fund 60. That's our capital projects fund, and that's where our big project outside is coming from. So I think that would be the wise place to do that. That may cover the cost of the additional concrete work that we're going to do for the Memorial Plaza, so we believe that that would be the best place to move that. And the Heartland Bank and Trust, we don't know exactly how much money that is right now, so it's going to stay in Working Cash Fund 70. Mr. Payton will be able to move that accordingly if he chooses to, once we know what that is and once we know a little bit better where we are overall and make a good decision about that.
Are there any questions? Okay. If not, I need a motion and a second to approve the transfer of accumulated FY25 interest in the Illinois Funds Investment Account for Working Cash Fund 70 to Illinois Investment Funds Investment Account Fund 60 in the amount of $40,633.62 per 105 ILCS 520-5. Was that Sig and Yeagle? Yeah. Is that who it was? Okay.
Jason Dolan,
Yes.
Sig Eber,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
Jonathan Larson,
Yes.
Josh Hahn,
Yes.
Jonathan Yeagle,
Yes.
Francie Miller,
Yes. Up next is review for approval the 2023-2024 AFR Shared Service Report and Fiscal Efficiency Form.
Okay, made a mistake right before your eyes tonight. I talked about this when I should have been talking about the amended budget. So I'll talk about the amended budget now since you already approved the AFR. With the amended budget, you heard what we had to say during the budget hearing this evening, and Kara is working to finalize that information, and still having a hard time getting Q to automatically upload it, so she's doing it by hand again, which is kind of frustrating, but it's just more time on task, but we will get that in. You will be asked to sign that cover page tonight, so we can get that finalized and updated to ISB. So, thank you. I'm sorry for the mismatch, but there's a lot of finance stuff going on for 3 years in one night.
Are there any questions about the amended budget or the AFR? Wrap it all in here. If not, I need a motion and a second to approve the 2023-2024 annual financial report, shared service report, and fiscal efficiency form for Blue Ridge CUSD number 18, conducted by Cole and Associates LLC, Shelbyville, Illinois, as presented. Josh? And Jason?
Sig Eager. Yes. David Harris.
Yes.
Jonathan Larson.
Yes.
Josh Hahn.
Yes.
Jonathan Yeagle.
Yes.
Jason Nolan.
Yes.
Francie Miller.
Yes. Up next is approval of child development, early stages through adolescence curriculum.
So this is what Paige referred to for Amy Thacker's curriculum for child development. The quote is included there for you. A little bit about the curriculum is there as well. And so we're asking for that approval so we can start with those new materials for 25-26 school year.
Any questions or comments? If not, I need a motion and a second to approve the purchase of child development curriculum for the 2025-2026 school year for Blue Ridge CUSD number 18 as presented. Sig.
Second.
And Yeagle.
David Harris.
Yes.
Jonathan Larson.
Yes.
Josh Hahn. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Jonathan Yeagle.
Yes.
Jason Nolan.
Yes.
Sig Eager.
Yes.
And Francie Miller.
Yes. And up next, we have the approval of Art of Education Flex Curriculum Suite.
And that's what Paige already spoke of as well. Molly Schneeman will be using this for K through 8. She had asked for some assistance. As you remember, instead of just being 4 through 8, she's going to be K through 8 this year. So she wanted to, since she'll be traveling, since she'll be full-time, she wanted to make sure that she had a support system. Really glad to hear it comes with PD too, because that is for singletons, we call them, it's really difficult to have professional development for them that's meaningful.
Okay. Any questions? If not, I need a motion and a second to approve the purchase of K-8 art curriculum for the 2025-2026 school year for Blue Ridge CUSD number 18 as presented. Sig.
Second.
And Jason.
Jonathan Larson.
Yes.
Josh Hahn.
Yes.
Jonathan Yeagle.
Yes.
Jason Nolan.
Yes.
Sig Eager.
Yes.
David Harris.
Yes.
Francie Miller.
Yes. Up next is consideration for letting bids for HLS window replacement at Blue Ridge High School.
So part of the HLS project is replacing the ag shop and industrial tech shop windows, and we do have asbestos that will need to be abated. We will be blocked off with wood, so it's safe for kids to be present when that work is done, so it's probably going to be done during the school year. So this is your granting permission for us to go out for bids for that project.
Are there any questions? If not, I need a motion and a second to approve the pursuit. Nope. Okay. I need a motion and a second to approve the letting of bids for HLS window replacement at Blue Ridge High School.
So moved.
So what I said was not what was here, so make a note for her. And David was first. Who was second? Sig? Sorry. What, this is approved. Something different.
Yes.
Jason Nolan.
Yes.
Sig Eager.
Yes.
David Harris.
Yes.
Jonathan Yeagle.
Yes.
Jonathan Larson.
Yes.
Francie Miller.
Yes. Okay, up next is approval of strategic plan for school years 2025 to 2030.
This seems like a long way away. But just a couple of things real quickly to talk about. So at last month, we had some conversation about the strategic plan, and some of the ideas were to look at maybe some more specific and measurable goals, especially related to student achievement. And so that's one of the things that we've worked on over the past month. Met with our admin team, and then also individually with both Mr. Huddleston and Mr. Easter, and really kind of developed two goals. Hopefully you've had time to look them over. There's a K-8 goal, and there is a 9-12 goal. The 9-12 goal Mr. Easter talked about a little bit earlier. It has to do with our ACT scores. We did very well this year, I think 19.4 as our composite score as a building, which is awesome, above state average. And so, really our new goal is going to look at continue to outperform state averages. The thing about ACT scores are difficult because you're measuring different cohorts of students each year. And so you're going to see some variation, but we really want to shoot to have a very high just kind of that culture of excellence and really, aim for a high target, right? Both of our goals that I'll mention tonight are very ambitious, but they're targets that we want to reach toward to continue to build kind of that academic excellence here in our district. So the other goal, and actually Sig had asked a question about what is a growth goal? What does typical growth look like in a year? That was kind of something that he had shared today, and that's a great question. So for those of you, that K-8 goal really looks at, by the end of our strategic planning cycle, 70% of K-8 students will demonstrate at least 1 year of typical growth. So when we talk about typical growth, what we're looking at is basically the average academic progress that a student makes in a year based on their grade level and their initial performance on the assessment. So you'd also talked about what measure we're using. So we utilize iReady. So iReady is kind of our diagnostic or benchmark assessment suite that we utilize. So that's something we've now had 2 years of historical data using. And so that gives us quite a bit of information. So a couple of things that come from that, when you look at that 70%, that may seem like a low number. It's really a really high and ambitious number. When you look at the research out there related to iReady, also MAP, which is another big competitor of iReady, they look at 50% of students meeting that annual typical growth. And so if you think about annual typical growth, I'll kind of describe it. Let's say that I am a third grader, and I test at let's say the 25th percentile to start the year. I am then measured against basically all other third graders that tested in the 24th percentile from all the collection and data that they've accumulated. They're going to give us, let's say they say the average typical growth is for that kid to go from the 25th percentile to the 50th percentile. So that would be the average typical growth, to go from 25 to 50. If I start at 25, I would expect that every other student at that same grade level and baseline to also grow there. So it's really looking at an expected rate of learning. And so why that's important, number one, because when we look at expected rates of learning, we can kind of identify diagnostically in our meetings, grade level meetings, after benchmarking, how quickly students are understanding what they need to be understanding. Obviously, let's take, for instance, let's say we're doing that initial assessment at 25, right? So in fall, we are looking at that student that scored a 25th percentile. We know by the end of the year, we want them to be at the 50th percentile. In winter, we want them to be right in between there, right? We want them to be halfway to that progress of 50. So what we're able to do is we can identify students that are not growing at the rate that we need them to. Those are our lower performing students. It gives us time to provide interventions and support through Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. Let's say a student is on-performing, we'll probably follow and continue with what we're doing with that student, hopefully utilizing that Tier 1 curriculum, and hopefully they're doing very well with that. But you can also identify specific sub-areas where we can kind of identify things that need to be improved. When we see students that are outperforming that, let's say, a student's at 25 and has met 50, has met that 50th percentile by the time they're in winter, that kid's growing exponentially, and that's wonderful, right? So we need to continue to enrich what they're doing to make sure that they are really getting the knowledge, skills, and just unlocking their full potential in general. So hopefully that idea kind of makes sense to you as far as that typical growth goes. It's really just a more comprehensive way to look and for teachers to identify, what's going on with that student instructionally, what are things that we can adjust or change, what are assessment practices that we can change, and curriculum-wise, what is working and what is not. So we look at achievement too. So we want to look at kind of, are they on grade level or below grade level? But really, when we look at growth, it just provides a more comprehensive look for our students from day to day and from just kind of a diagnostic standpoint for teaching.
So you need to be on would it be unreasonable to make it a goal to get kids performing at grade level? So we'd say, shoot for 70% of kids performing at grade level. I know they're behind, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't be suggesting doing 1 year, well, I guess 1 year of growth could actually end up being even more challenging for a student that's really succeeding. But for everybody else, I mean,
And that's the good thing, honestly, about looking at the growth target itself is because it's an average typical growth. So, sometimes if we're expecting a kid that's already met and achieved, where they need to be, right? They're already at grade level. How are we pushing them? When we look at the growth rate of it, we can say, hey, we know that this kid is performing the 97th percentile, but we compare these to all the other kids performing the 97th percentile. We should have a general idea of where they should be so we can look at that learning rate and make sure that they're staying where they need to be. Right? If they're below the learning rate where it's expected to be, then we need to push them a little bit harder or find a different way. Proficiency won't always tell us that. It's another measure that we can use, right? But it's just the growth goal gives us a little bit more information. Now, can we report and talk about proficiency? Absolutely. Can that be something that when we do some of this work, we can have those ideas shared during our diagnostic assessment information when we do that? Because we will report on this quarterly. So we'll report on the growth goal, and we can just have principals also talk about kind of what that proficiency number looks like. And remember, that proficiency number may look a little different on iReady as it does in IAR. They don't always match up. And so that's another reason why we didn't do an IAR kind of proficiency score. We just don't have the information for that because it's changing. The accountability system is changing. It's just going to look different. We actually got some information today, a little bit of information about that assessment, but they're really working on it in July. I think there's a 4-day week in July where there's many educators from across the state coming together to look at cut scores and to start identifying what that proficiency number looks like. They're going to reduce it from, right now there's 5 kind of areas of designation, 1 through 5. They're going to reduce it to 4. So it's going to look very different when we get those scores in the fall.
look at proficiency levels, that's what they're trying to determine is what is a first grader or second grader supposed to be? What's that reading level? What are the things to look
What
for? and say
standards do
they're-
they know?
Yes,
Right?
so they're determining those still.
Yes,
And then we can use them.
yes.
Okay, that's great.
And that could be something maybe we add at a different point too, or we can talk about those things as well, absolutely. But yeah, we'll look at both proficiency and student growth as we move forward. Both of them are important because they allow us to evaluate student learning, be able to evaluate instructional practices and curriculum that we're using. So those will both be measures that we look at. Yep.
Just want to make sure we're all on the same page. That's
Absolutely.
what the guy said when we had that meeting the other night.
No,
Gotta make sure you're on the
I
same
agree.
page, clear goals, everybody's moving in the same
Yep.
direction.
I appreciate you asking the questions, yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
Are there any other questions? If not, I need a motion and a second to approve the strategic plan for Blue Ridge Community School District number 18 as presented.
And we did look at the clerical things that you talked about as well. Yes.
Good, sorry.
Yes, sorry, I forgot to mention that at the beginning. Yes, yes, we did look at those things as well, and both Dr. Sanford and I looked at them this morning, made some adjustments.
So was that a motion?
Motion to approve?
So motion by Sig. Second by Yeagle.
Jonathan Yeagle,
Yes.
Jason Nolan,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
David Huber,
Yes.
Jonathan Larson,
Yes.
Josh Hahn,
Yes.
Francie Miller,
Yes. Now I need a motion and a second to move from open session to closed session for the purpose of appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district at 8:50.
So,
Okay, give that to Yeagle, and was that Josh?
sure.
Who was it, if so? Oh, it's Jason, so Yeagle and Jason, sorry.
Sir, Jay.
If they could just change your voices a little, there's a lot of male voices down there. Yeah, it was, yeah,
Jason Nolan,
Yes.
they did their thing.
Huber,